Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dave, and today I want to take a look at a simple two-fund portfolio as a potential replacement for simply buying the S&P 500 as my core holding. So I'm always on the lookout for something with better performance but similar risk. So the question is, can we do better? Which setup will give us a better return, maybe a smoother ride, dare I say even a little bit more income? Let's find out. If that is what you're looking for, please stick around. First of all, what are the ETFs in question? Well, I'm going to use VOO from Vanguard to represent the S&P 500. VOO, it tracks the S&P 500 index. That's 500 of the largest U.S. companies across all sectors. Think of it like an all-in-one exposure to the U.S. stock market. It's broad, it's cheap to own, and it's diversified. You could also replace VOO with other versions of the same thing. For example, you could use SPY, IVV, or SPLG. Those are the same thing, different ETF ticker symbol. And I'll be comparing VOO to a 50-50 portfolio of two Schwab funds. Media darling SCHD, which everybody loves to review this ETF. SCHD is the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, and it focuses on high-quality, dividend-paying U.S. companies with solid fundamentals. Think of like value stocks with stable income streams. Now, I've reviewed this one before, and I'll leave that link above and below. And the other 50% of this two-fund portfolio is SCHG, which is Schwab's U.S. Large Cap Growth ETF. It's the flip side, right? The growth-focused, tech-heavy, centered on companies expected to expand really, really fast, give you that growth. So now, why would we split 50-50 between SCHD and SCHG? Well, because it blends value and dividends with growth and innovation. So this is potentially creating a well-balanced, diversified alternative to VOO, right? So we want a similar risk profile. Now, you might be thinking, do I get the same stocks? Well, no. If we look at fund overlap, we see the holdings are quite different. One of the cool things about SCHD and SCHG is they have exactly zero overlap. So buying these two gives you two completely independent ETFs, and together they give you exposure to about 333 different holdings. So it's not too far off from the 500 that are in the S&P 500. However, SCHD does overlap with VOO by about 43%, but that still leaves about 60 unique holdings in SCHD that are not in the S&P 500, and about one half of SCHG is in the S&P 500, but that still leaves a large group of growth stocks that have been selected by Schwab that sit outside of the S&P 500. Now you might be thinking, Dave, can I just buy the total U.S. stock market and own all of this with something like VTI? And the answer is yes, but I have yet to find a period where VTI outperforms the S&P 500. Since inception of VOO back in 2010, it has always lagged the S&P 500. So that might change in the future, but thus far we are better off with VOO over VTI in the long run. That's what's happened thus far. So the question is, do these unique holdings selected by these two Schwab funds, based upon their selection criteria, outperform the large stocks that sit within the S&P 500? Well, let's look at the last 10 years and see. And for that, I'm going to use Portfolio Visualizer. It is free to use, the basic level, and it's a great way to compare historical performance. So I'm going to set up three portfolios: VOO at 100%, SCHD and SCHG each at 50%. And for my third build, I'm going to use 50% SCHD, 25% XLK, that's the Spider Select Tech Sector ETF, and 25% XLV, which is the Spider Select Healthcare ETF. And why the third portfolio? Well, this last one is a portfolio build that I did a few years back, and you can find that video here if you want to explore it more yourself, but an interesting mix between those three. So I want to see how that holds up as well. So of these three, which offered the best return, the smoothest ride, and the most income? Let's find out. So as I mentioned, I'm using Portfolio Visualizer to model these three portfolios, and this is a free program. So if you want to sign up for this, you do sign up, but that allows you to go back 10 years and model some simple portfolios. It's a great tool, and if you want the paid version, you can get that as well, and you can go back further in time and get down to the nitty gritty if you really want to. But for what we're trying to do today, just comparing three different portfolios to see how they stack up, maybe with a similar risk profile and what they would offer, well, it does a great job. So in this case, we're going to go back to January of 2016 till now. We're reinvesting all dividends, but we are not rebalancing the portfolio. That's the setup. Portfolio 1 is the S&P 500, 100% allocation. And how did it do? So over the last 10 years, again, pretty good 10 years to be invested in the market. So this is a $10,000 investment about 10 years ago. That gives you a 13.5% annualized return. That's solid, right? I would take that. I would certainly take that. Now, risk, standard deviation of 15.5% and a max drawdown here of 23.9%. So those are our first numbers. Again, portfolio 1, S&P 500, portfolio 2, SCHD and SCHG at 50% each. And from 13.5 to 14.5, which you might say that's only 1%, but this is an annualized return. So that's pretty significant over time. Standard deviation is exactly the same. Max drawdown 24.7. So we do have a little bit more of a drawdown, probably a little bit more exposure to tech with this SCHG being 50% of the allocation. And then portfolio number 3, we've got that other mix that I talked about. Again, I did this a couple years ago, SCHD, XLK, and XLV. I kind of like this mix, right? Dividends, it's the tech play, and then a defensive sector ETF like XLV. Has not performed well over the last year or so, but in the long term, healthcare tends to shine, have its moments in the sun. So in this case, 14.2%. So kind of in the middle as far as the return. The drawdown is the lowest, and the standard deviation is also the lowest at 14.7%. So pretty good, kind of right in the middle of those two, but again with the lower risk. So what would you pick for your core? So performance summary, portfolio 1, 2, and 3, $10,000, and your ending balance $32,000, $35,000, about a $3,000 difference, and then $34,000. So both of these still beat the S&P 500. So not by a big, it's not a huge amount, but it does make a difference over the long run. So with something like this, could that replace your core versus just owning the S&P 500? Something else that I like about breaking that up a little bit is it allows you to pick and choose at times. Or if you are dollar cost averaging into something and you see one that's had a significant drawdown recently, maybe that's where you want to put a little bit more money. So it gives you some flexibility there. So Sharpe ratio a little bit higher for portfolio 2 and 3 versus the S&P 500. That's also interesting too. We've got a best year, worst year, 31.18, 31.19, just a little bit higher, and then 32, best year. That's interesting. And down only 12%, so minimal drawdown. So portfolio 1, 2, and 3. Then you can see portfolio growth. Let me get that on the screen for you. So we've got portfolio 1, the blue. Portfolio 2 is at the top there. That's the best performing one with $35,000. And portfolio 3, kind of right in the middle there. At times actually outperforming portfolio 2. Then we can scroll down further and we can see annual returns for each one of these. You can take a look at that. I'll freeze for a moment. And the last slide that I want to show you is portfolio income. So again, portfolio 1, 2, and 3. And it starts off pretty equal back in 2016, but you see over time the growth primarily driven from probably SCHD, but maybe the healthcare sector as well. And you kind of start to see that portfolio 1 lagging behind portfolio 2, and portfolio 3 outshining both of them. And you might think, well, that's not that much, Dave, but we're talking about a $10,000 investment, year 10, and it's a significant percentage difference when you're considering $416 versus about $700. So that's a big step up between portfolio 1 and portfolio 3. So something to consider. Of course, as they say, past performance does not guarantee future results. Like that, the performance of that fry cook from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, just terrible, right? Completely forgettable. But I did hear that he ended up having a decent career, so who am I to judge? Oh, and between you and me, whatever you do, don't tell Maverick that we saw Goose. smoking dope with Spicoli.
What are you people? On dope?
That Maverick guy, he can be pretty intense. Who knows what he might do? For all I know, I could see him having some elaborate scheme that leads to his ultimate demise. Oh my God. Wait a second. Anyway, what do you think? Are you team SCHD, SCHG, or keep it simple, team VOO? Drop your thoughts in the comments or let me know what you hold in your own portfolio as your core position. Now, if this did help you out, give it a like, share it with a friend, and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.